Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Owen Shelm, and I'm part of the STEP support team that has been working with DDS for the last year or so on STEP implementation. And I'm joined by my colleague, Betsy Bella, this morning to continue our technical assistance webinar series with this session, which is focused on job development in general and creating employment connections in the community. We're really excited to have Mark Community Resources with us again today. Some of you, if you've joined a previous session, will recognize Melissa and Du, and they will be sharing a little bit about their business development council and some of the early successes that they've had in building relationships with community employers. I'm going to share my screen really quickly. So we will be using Zoom this morning, and I just wanted to give a quick refresher on some of the tools available because this is an open session like all of our previous ones, and we encourage participation throughout this. We hope that this will be pretty discussion based, and you all will feel comfortable sharing your thoughts, asking questions via whichever method makes the most sense for you. So there's a couple of ways that you can do that. We encourage you to come on video if you would like to ask a question live and unmute your speaker whenever you'd like. Or you can send a question in the chat, and Betsy and I will be monitoring it throughout the session and address those questions when we get to a lull in the presentation. So before we jump into the conversation with Mark Community Resources, I'll have a quick poll for you all just to gauge where you're at with step planning at this point. And I'm sure some of you have already answered these questions, but just bear with us. We like to keep track of everybody that is working through step plans for DDS. So there's a few options here. You'll see haven't started, pretty self-explanatory. If you have been working on a plan or if you've had a conversation with us, your plan would be in progress and then submitted and working through the approval process with your region is one thing, and then approved obviously means you've either started working or you're about to in the near future. We've got about 11 responses here. Okay, and as usual, I say this every time, but we got a good mix of folks on the call today. 7 of you have not started yet, which is pretty exciting. So hopefully this is a helpful session and we'll be able to answer some questions to help you get started. I think we also anticipated that there would be folks that have been approved already, especially folks that are working through day transformations and shifting people into independent employment support. So that is as expected as well. I'll give this just 30 seconds or so. There's about 10 folks that haven't responded yet. Okay, you can go ahead and put that off. Oh, Betsy, did you share the results? Cool. They're up there. So as you can see, a lot of folks that haven't started, several folks that are submitted and approved. And no matter what stage you are, I think this will be a helpful session. And again, please feel free to stop us at any point and ask questions. I also want to say we have a pretty big group this morning, so I won't do individual introductions, but please feel free to share a little introduction in the chat with your agency name and what kind of transformation you're working towards. And if you have any initial questions that you already have top of mind, feel free to add them now. But this morning, we are going to be focusing on job development and building community connections, which has been a significant issue for providers, and they've raised to us during technical assistance sessions and also in larger forums. Has been something that you all are working through as you plan and complete employment transitions. We've heard how challenging it is and how challenging it can be to find ISE placements for even individuals that are very interested in competitive employment and may be very well aligned to it given their skills and their work experience. And not only just placing someone in independent support, but also finding something that's a really great fit for them that aligns to their interest areas and their goals. And our hope is that with this session and with this conversation with Mark Community Resources, we'll be able to provide some tangible examples of how to start developing those jobs and how to approach building relationships with employers. We also want to acknowledge up front that these are super complex challenges, and we don't imagine that this is a catch-all fix for every agency because it's going to vary very much depending on your capacity and your staffing levels, especially for those of you that operate at a smaller scale. And we've had conversations with agencies that are just building their programs as well. But there are definitely elements of this process that are going to apply across the board, regardless of size and whatever your program circumstances are. And I think something to highlight and that Melissa and Du will touch on as well is that education is an extremely important part of this process, and leveraging creative resources and methods for illustrating to employers the value of working with the individuals that you all support has a huge impact on hiring. And you'll hear from Mark that they've done some really cool things with video testimonials. They have physical materials. They've shared like brochures and handbooks. And this is always going to be a super important part of the process. The community is always learning, and we're excited to give you all some more examples there. Something else to remember is that this is an ongoing effort. You're never going to be done with job development and building relationships, especially as agencies continue to grow and take in more referrals. It often takes time for these relationships to actually bear out with tangible results. So ensuring that this relationship building process is sustainable and ongoing and is actually institutionalized is super important. To make sure that there are time and dedicated resources in each of your agencies to managing these relationships, communicating with employers, and always kind of looking for new areas to engage. And with that, I would love to pass it over to Melissa and Du to share some of the details about their Business Development Council. And Du, I'll let you share your screen.
All right, so hi everybody, I'm Melissa Davis and I'm the CEO from Mark Community Resources. So we're going to talk a little bit about our Business Development Council. And Aaron, I saw you on the call, so I know Aaron used to work at Mark, and I think you were involved in this years and years ago when it was up and running. So when I started a couple years ago, the Business Development Council wasn't in effect. They weren't using it, but it had been a historical committee that was kind of founded to help bring community members and people that worked at Mark together in the effort of trying to find more job opportunities for the individuals that we serve. And they would do different things, including a very large breakfast, kind of honoring the folks who were working in the community and doing really well. So that was a big part of the committee. And so when I got on board and Du came on board, we resurrected it and renamed it the Business Development Council. Du, if you want to go to the next slide. And so our intention was to bring together board members, community members, folks that we work with, who had contracts with, and our people that work here to establish more relationships in the community. And we really wanted it to be a working committee, that it wasn't just going to be talking, that we were actually going to have tasks and things that each committee member would be working on. So I don't know, Du, if you want me to say more about the mission or if you want to jump in.
Sure, yeah. So these are some mission goals that we have. One of the things is to educate businesses and the mutual benefits of employing our individuals. So sometimes this is a conversation about the fact that our individuals historically, and the data shows that they're very reliable employees. They don't call to work, they come to work, they're able to produce. And also kind of explain to them some of the federal or state benefits as far as employing our folks in facilities and what that can entail for them. Happening tap into this population as an overlooked possible employee market. finding real business solutions to their staffing needs. So kind of having a conversation with them initially as far as what they're struggling with hiring, what areas they need help with, to see if we have folks in our services that have those skill sets. Help provide competitive employment opportunities. So we'll talk about this a little further. We're trying to move away from us being the employer of individuals to have businesses be the employers, and empower individuals in their employment and vocational goals, and to assist individuals be productive members of their business communities. So some of the tasks that the Business Development Council does is we develop marketing brochures, and have a couple brochures I'll share later. We're in the process of making a video in collaboration with Middlesex Hospital. They've taken on the cost, and that's a video they're going to help us not just highlight our project search program, but just overall employment programs, so we can use that to educate other employers as well. Community engagement is a big piece. Anything from transition fairs and talking to potential families about services that we offer, and also connecting with those families as far as some of these family members have their own businesses or they have folks connections. So looking at it from a service type, but also trying to engage them as far as what people they could connect us with in the community. Going to employment fairs, we go to employment for two reasons. One, we go to employment fairs as employers looking for staff members or managers. But we also have somebody there is walking around talking to these employers about what we offer for our individuals, and trying to at least get our foot in the door for a meeting to kind of discuss with them how we can help them meet their staffing needs with our individuals. Vendor fairs and chamber events is another big one. Make a lot of connections in the chamber events with different business types. And at least, we know this is going to be a slow process. We want to start that conversation at first and keep the conversation going, and hopefully it'll work towards an agreement. Community education. So we all, as part of the conversation, we offer to be able, for example, Melissa and I offer to go out there and do trainings for them as far as what our population is, what do you see, what can you expect. Use some of the trainings that we use for our staff members, like the psychological piece of PMT and reviewing how our individuals are supported. So we're always willing to offer to them any trainings that help them be a little more at ease with having our folks work for them. Because let's be realistic, I think we all know there's still a little uneasiness for some businesses when it comes to our population. Is trying to help them and educate them to understand our folks a little better. Establish those business relationships. Ideally, it'd be competitive employment or have a job site. But if that's not something possible for them, can we do an internship site? Can we do a volunteer site? Can we offer different staffing solutions? And we try to brainstorm with them while we're there. Kind of like a stepping. So we look at it as a step, if you will. If we have to start off as an internship site, are they willing to, as part of the agreement, to look at our individuals every 3 to 6 months to see if one of them is ready to be employed, and have that regular conversation with them as part of the agreement. Establish measurable goals. So that's something that our Business Development Council does. Right now, we're in the process of finalizing our business satisfaction surveys. If we use that for data and promoting, looking at our percentage of individuals currently employed and trying to establish a threshold or goal for what we want the percentage to look like, and rolling that into a strategic plan that we're in the process of making. And our board members are actively involved. The majority of members on this council are board members. So it's about 50-50, or if not a little more, board members. They're very much actively involved. They go to some of these events with us. They will point us in the right directions. They'll make connections with communities and say, hey, I make this contact, and you guys can call them up and establish that relationship. So some of the objectives of the council is to educate and advocate in the community. So we talked about, talking to employers about our population and pointing out some data regarding our population as far as them being a reliable employment source and how skilled they are. To obtain contracted work sites for our individuals. That would be a contract through Mark, where we have our individuals go there and they work there for a period of time, and they essentially pay us to pay our individuals. Identify individuals' interests in competitive work and employment opportunities, and develop strategies to help them become competitively employed. And the highlighted part here is we're really trying to focus on moving away from us being the employer of the individual and having the actual businesses be the employer. We do understand that takes some time, though. So we look at it as, if we start off, for example, as a GSC group, where we have 3 or 4 individuals go for staff member, part of that agreement being that they're willing to look at our individuals every 3 months, 6 months, whatever, and at least give them a chance to possibly be employed. Provide a variety of options for employers. So again, some employers can't necessarily afford it for right now. We did, in the process of going through this, had to reduce some of our contracts because I'm sure, like many of you guys, we were previously a 14C certificate holder. I believe about 2 or 3 years ago, Mark has stopped being a 14C certificate holder. So a lot of our contracts previously were built upon that pricing. So we were not making the cut as far as getting reimbursed back for being a payer individual. So we had to restructure a lot of these contracts. And part of the discussion was, well, if you can't afford to do that, can you at least have us there as an internship site? Can we come there a couple days a week? You continue to give us a chance to have this relationship and possibly, have our folks employed. Ensure the market is a support system. So kind of highlighting to them that they have an extra level of support if they do employ their individuals there. We're willing to come out and help and train. Our staff are willing to come out and be trained on those tasks those individuals need to work on so that we can help train them and being in constant contact with them so they know that we're there to help whenever things arise. And to increase the percentage of individuals that are in competitive employment. So we are looking at what percentage of individuals in our employment programs now are competitively employed and trying to make a realistic goal to increase that over time. So some of the steps that we took, like I discussed, is looking at our ensuring the business contracts that we had are financially solvent. We found very early on that they were not. A lot of times we were getting 50% of what we should have been getting because of the pricing that was done regarding 14C. So we re-engaged these contracts and kind of gave them a couple of different proposals. If needed, there was 1 or 2 contracts where we were okay when we ran the numbers to keep them the same. The majority of them need to be relooked at. If there wasn't a possibility, we looked at multiple options for them, such as either hiring one of our individuals at SEI or having GSC or have reducing the amount of hours or the amount of individuals so they could still keep us on and we could work towards something. If for some reason we couldn't establish a business contract, we engaged them in conversations regarding internship site, working interviews, a combination of internship site and a work site, possibly identifying individuals that we feel like could do the job on their own, do individual supported employment. Training the administrators or other potential coworkers if they feel uneasy or if they've had some concerns regarding some of the behaviors or things they've seen with our folks. It's getting them more comfortable working a population and learning how to engage them appropriately. Some of the marketing materials that we have is our first one here is a staffing solution that makes sense. So again, we're trying to tell them this is our individuals or a possible staffing solution for their needs and that we could, they are more than capable of doing these jobs just like the regular employees they have there. So we give them this this brochure and we work through some testimonials here on top regarding FedEx. FedEx is a site that we have. We've had FedEx for several years. It's an IAC site for us. We have about 6 individuals that work there. We pick them up, we bring them to work. They work there a slightly modified schedule compared to the rest of the employees there because we were able to establish that relationship with FedEx, but they get paid directly through FedEx. We are just there to support them. The staff member bounces around and assists as needed. We also talk about group supported employment and other options for them. This is the back piece of that staffing solution. So when we're looking at this, we're kind of looking at it as a pinpoint of a temp agency, if will, kind of looking at ourselves as a temp agency. If we could offer these staffing solutions to people with the option of them being able to employ them directly when they felt comfortable, we kind of explained to them that's a mutual benefit for them. So they could have 3 months, 6 months, a year. You could have a period of time of individual working there as a Mark employee until you feel like, well, they're exactly where we need to be. They're productive. We would like to hire them head on. So we try to keep that open arrangement with them. We do use our project search as a way to advocate for our individuals there because our project search has been pretty successful. Our first year, we had 100% of our individuals employed directly by the hospital. Now we're looking, I think this is slightly over 60%, if I'm not mistaken, for this upcoming class. And so we highlight some of the stories in our project search program where a lot of these individuals they didn't feel like they could do the job. They didn't feel like they had the skill set. And then we've had a lot of success there. One of our folks is actually this class, this cohort that coming around is now a registered pharmacy technician. So they've been able to achieve things that I think themselves and other folks thought they couldn't achieve. So we highlight that in our conversations with the businesses that this is something that's achievable. We also try to use the model project search as a discussion point for them as well. So if they would like us To have an internship site, we would like to have different opportunities and rotate through different parts of their business to learn those parts, and hopefully give them exposure to some of our folks that have the skill set to do so. This is just the second part of that brochure, the mission statement, the internship sites, job skills, personal growth. So we hand out both of these things. So we're in the process of making a third one, which incorporates kind of both of these two together. So I spat through a lot of information here, but this is my contact information for Melissa and myself, our extension numbers and emails. Feel free to reach out. Let me know if you guys have any questions right now.
Thank you so much, Melissa and Du. It's really incredible information that you've all been able to share. We're really excited for the group to hear it today. So we'd like to open the floor. Do folks have questions for Mark CR this morning? Feel free to just come off mute or to pop them in the chat.
I have one question. So I know for your business council, I think business development committee, I'm not sure what you're calling it now, but do you struggle to get people to come to that? I know we've tried to do different things with employers here, and we really struggle to get kind of the buy-in from the employment committee to want to come, kind of that what's in it for me type mentality. So what have you done to try to address that?
Yes, we definitely do struggle. It takes a little bit of harassment, to be frank, on our end to reach out to some of these folks. We've actually, our director of employment here, Employment Day Services, was able to engage somebody in community and met with them. He actually ended up, he was very interested. She did a really good job. We kind of work on a script of highlighting. So we understand what businesses is, what benefits them. And we don't want them to look at us as a nonprofit. A lot of these agencies, companies we work with prior would, when we went to renegotiate our contracts, we were like, well, we were kind of looking at this as a charity. We weren't really looking at a product here. And we're like, nope, that's not what we do. We're a business like everybody else. So they're trying to change that mindset. So she met somebody out there. He ended up coming on the business development board, and he's on the board now. He's helped us, quite frankly, a lot of them help us have established those relationships. So it does take some emailing, some calling, some visiting. We're pretty aggressive. We try to be as aggressive as possible without being too overly aggressive, if you will. But it's still a struggle. Right now, we understand a lot of businesses are struggling business-wise, and we understand that. So if that's not something they could do right now, we do ask them if they're at least willing to give us an internship site, so they could we could learn there and we could work there, and possibly they possibly find a potential good employee just by working there as an internship site. So that's what we try to highlight for them as well. But it's an everyday struggle. It's like pulling teeth sometimes. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. Do you meet regularly? I'm sorry if I missed that. How often do you?
Once a month. But we're also flexible because there's times where that doesn't line up with everyone's schedule. So we may miss a month here or there, but it is on the calendar every month.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's definitely not, I think, Owen, you said it before, it's an ongoing process. It's always going to be an ongoing process. We're definitely not perfect. We're just trying to figure out the best way to change the narrative. I mean, it's been like this since I've been in the business. And so we're now really trying to shift it towards a more normal, like how you or I would get a job, right? Like really trying to focus that the disability thing is nonsense and that our guys can do everything that you or I do. And so that's the biggest re-education that we're really focusing on. And I think Project Search helped even our staff to understand that that was a possibility, because I think when our folks went into Project Search, we were like, yeah, okay, great. They're going to do linens and like clean the rooms. And our guys are in central sterile, they're in rehab, they're in transport, they're in food and nutrition. They're in every single department. We're in 12 different departments, 7 of them being hired with another, we think 6 are going to get hired this next session. And so that's really proven to even us that, oh my God, there is no limit, like there is no bar. And so sometimes I think we get caught up in that too, because we've been doing this for so long. So that's been a really good re-education for all of us.
We're really looking forward to the video that Middlesex Hospital is collaborating with us because they're going to highlight that the fact that these folks are very capable. And a lot of times they're more capable and more productive than the quote unquote regular employees in those departments. And they've been a huge advocate for us, and they're willing to go to these meetings with us and kind of say that out loud.
Yeah.
That's great. Thanks.
That emphasis on building relationships that then build to further and broader as everybody learns more together. It's really incredible.
So we understand we're gonna have to spoon feed some of these businesses. We understand it's just getting our foot in the door, starting the conversation and starting off slowly. We know this is not going to happen for next year. It could take 1 year, 2 years, possibly, up to, several years to get these relationships. We just want to get our foot in the door and start to show them what our folks can do. And we know over time they'll start to catch on.
We've got a question in the chat. It says, what has the success rate been for converting internship sites into competitive employment opportunities? I know you touched on that with Project Search, but sort of elsewhere as well. And then what tools have you used to accomplish this?
So we're very early on in this reestablishing this council. We reestablished it with the STEP program. So right now we're still in the beginning stages. So we haven't necessarily gotten to the part where converting internship. And some of the cases we actually had to go backwards. We had a work site where they were paying us not enough money to pay our individuals because it was 14C pricing, and we've had to convert that to an internship site. So that might seem like a step back, but it's actually just, again, our main goal is to establish those relationships at first. And we're sure in a couple of years we're going to have some actual data to show. What was the second part of that question?
And then what tools have you used to accomplish this? How do you help support folks moving from internship to competitive employment?
So again, we're in the beginning stages of that, but we kind of have it mapped out we already have like a pathway. We have a couple different pathways, as we call them. It goes either to GSE, to ISC, or GSE to transition to ISC. Just kind of making sure that we're meeting with the teams, we're establishing those goals on a regular basis, and that we're looking at the next steps. And then having the families be more comfortable with this too. Sometimes it's just as hard to get the guardians and families to kind of let go a little bit and understand that you're not going to have a staff. You may not have a staff with you the whole time. You may be in this department alone. So easing them into it as well is part of the process. So we're in the beginning stages of that, but talk to us in a year or two and I'm sure we'll have some data.
Yeah, and it all comes back to relationships. It just always will. We work with humans. It's always going to be relationships. And so sometimes it doesn't always work out, but our thought process is if we keep throwing stuff out there, if we keep meeting people, keep talking, eventually it will give. We're not sure where it's going to give, but eventually something will break. And there's one individual I think about all the time. We've lost him. He was a graduate of Project Search, went and got fully employed. His guardian really struggled with the staff not being there, and she has since stopped services with us. She couldn't handle the independence of what he was able to accomplish, and so that was a real struggle for us. And I think for our staff too, they really thought like this is the goal, right? We did it, we got him a job, and the family struggled too much. They weren't able to be okay with him being an adult and growing up and having a full-time job. So we still see that. I think we're always going to see that because families have been raised to protect we all want to raise and protect our children. But with people who have IDD, there's a extra emphasis on keep them safe, be there with them all the time. They always need supervision. And so that has been a huge culture shift as well.
One thing I didn't touch on the slides as well is that's been part of the conversation with this council as well, is we've realized that sometimes the guardians and family members are also a barrier. So we've talked about what can we offer to them, whether that's a presentation here, have them come here and eat, have some dinner, and us kind of talking to them about this process to kind of ease them into it. Because we realize over time that it's not just the employers, it's also sometimes it's the family members themselves that are a little too, they're just not willing to let go of some things and let some, take some risk, if you will, some reasonable risk. So we realize that's part of the process too, and we have to get on that.
Yeah.
There's a comment in the chat, very similar experience for us from a provider who's 9 weeks into their first 16-week vocational step cycle and running into similar issues. Corindus, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, I just had a conversation not long ago with a family who was really pushing for the daughter to be involved in volunteer stuff only. And she's capable of working, and mom is just so dogmatic about it affecting the benefits. And so
Yeah.
I've talked to them about benefits counseling and how, this could actually, be helpful for them because they're kind of a low income family. And I'm wondering, how do you have that conversation with people that you be introducing to an opportunity like this?
That's a tough conversation, especially when there's socioeconomic um, factors that are involved in the family as well, so not just the individual. That can be really, really difficult. We have several individuals. In fact, our 7 individuals that graduated from the Middlesex Hospital last year. That was one of the big questions is, okay, so now I'm going to be working 30 hours a week. How's that going to affect my benefits? And I don't want it to affect my benefits. We've had some families that were much more accepting of it, and then others that said, no, they're only going to work 16 because we don't want to get involved in having to, reapply or whatever. It's an ongoing conversation that we pull DDS into, case management, to help wherever they can. We have one young gentleman, though, who is full-time at the hospital, has a 401k, has full medical benefits. And that I was just talking to mom a couple weeks ago about how that has completely negated his benefits. And she's okay with it. She was like, but she was almost saying it like, I'm going to be okay. Like she wanted almost for me to believe it as well as her to believe it. So it's an ongoing conversation.
So my other follow-up question to that is, do you provide any mentoring for organizations who would be looking at STEP? Because I know that you talked about the council that you have. And so a lot of people on here are new to customized employment, the concept of, something like STEP. And I know while it's competitive, at the same time, there's not a lot of agencies out there that are doing it. And so have you guys put together anything to mentor like agencies that might be looking at taking it on?
Go ahead, do if you want to.
We've actually 3 that I can recall have reached out to us, and we've had conversations on a one-by-one basis. Just kind of, hey, we're thinking about doing this. What was your experience? So feel free to email us, and we definitely are willing to have those conversations and let you know what we did on our end and how we looked at it. For folks who are new to the STEP initiative and we're trying to apply for this, we first looked at our agency as a whole. What do we want to do to restructure? And we had some ideas regarding restructuring, and it fit right in line with what STEP was doing. So it just made perfect sense for us to do so. It may not make sense for everybody though, but we're willing to, give you our experiences and how we kind of thought about it and how we put together the plan. And we're pretty blunt and upfront about it. It was a lot of work. Melissa did the majority of it. It was a ton of work going up front, as far as trying to get the plan put together and structure it and meet with the teams. It's not something, and you definitely earn the incentives. You're going to be earned. So it's a lot of work involved, but we're more than willing to meet with anybody if they want to have any discussions.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? I mean, it's a sign of a good presentation when folks come out and say, like, how can I talk to you more? As you're talking about the Business Development Council meetings, what do those meetings actually look like? What happens during them?
We have a member of our board is the chairperson of the Business Development Council. So he normally leads it. We do have an agenda that we try to kind of work off stuff we had done from the meeting prior. He also keeps minutes. They're not tremendous. I'm not talking about they're not completely detailed. We don't transcribe it. It's not that serious. We try to keep it light so that we're not adding work on top of work. But we do talk about some of the agenda items, and most recently we had been wanting to get those brochures out so that when we're at different fairs, meeting different folks, we would have a marketing material. We also purchased, just some like pens and stickies and like good little goodies. People always like that stuff, little tchotchke things that we can bring to vendor fairs and meeting with businesses. So mostly we talk about items that we've been working on, where we're at with those, and then kind of what's upcoming. So, what other members of the team have been doing, where more education is needed. When we first put this in place, we really didn't want it to be just another meeting. That was kind of our fear, that we would just have another meeting on the books. And sometimes it can feel like that. And sometimes we have to like Du and I were talking last month and we're like, this meeting has to have action steps. Like we've got to walk out of this with actual tasks. because we don't want it to just be, we come on Zoom, we talk for an hour, we joke, we laugh, we get off, we move on with our day. We really wanted it to have, meaningful tasks. And so that was a conversation that we had last month. We're looking at hiring a job developer. We've had one in the past. We haven't had one in a while. We think that we're at a step to do that now with some of the structure changes that we've had. So different items that were really like tangible tasks that we're looking at that we want to do.
It also gets reviewed at the board meeting itself.
Yeah.
So there's some accountability there. The whole board itself, there's a section of it at the end of it where the chair for this particular council will give updates on. So everybody else is involved. There's a level of ownership involved with that, and they want to make sure we're moving forward with the progress.
No, that's really helpful. So that idea of having action items and having accountability, right? Making sure that it has goals that it moves towards, and also that there's report outs beyond the council, so that things don't just get lost in the shuffle. Yeah, we've all seen things fall victim to both those issues.
Yep.
Okay. So we've got questions for the group at large, but feel free to interrupt folks if you've got follow-ups for Melissa or Do. We know we have people on the call who are working with agencies that are doing employment efforts outside of STEP, who are launching into pieces with STEP, but you all provide supports to individuals that include job support. So a question out to the group at large: what success have you had building relationships with employers, right? Are there things that you heard from Listen Do that resonate with what you're doing? Is there a different approach you take you'd like to share with the group? Everybody's hiding their trade secrets.
We don't have any.
All right. Or sometimes this gets people more interested in talking. What have been some of your biggest challenges, right? We've heard in placing individuals in jobs that fit their interests and skills. Oh, here we've got a comment from Lucas on successes: pounding the pavement, chamber meetings, getting out and visiting small businesses in person. That's a theme we've been hearing from lots of folks, right? That idea of sometimes you just have to get out there and you have to go and you make the phone calls.
Hi, I just had some stuff. Hi, Melissa. Hi, Do. So I've been working on the STEP transition for HARC, for our employment services transition, for quite a while now, especially with you, Betsy. And a lot of the initiatives that I hear Melissa and Do talk about, I've included them into my STEP plan. I did submit and was told that a lot of what I put into the STEP plan, we started here already at the employment center. So it wasn't accepted because we already started the process. So we needed to I was told to document new things that show that there is a transition. So my thought process was I didn't want to sit and wait on all these initiatives. I want to show you guys what we're doing, and then there's more to come. But I was told to show some type of transition. So I am working on that. But as far as obstacles, it's really what everyone's talked about. We have so many initiatives going on here that I even have, and I hate to say this, case managers where I've placed individuals in an ISE setting or even a job placement that they're like, oh, I don't know, because they really love what's going on at the program with, what you guys are doing with being creative, and we rather them attend program. And I'm like, I need the support from families and the case managers and, kind of the team as a whole, because I think we're getting so creative with our, initiatives that it's becoming more of a good time here, as you would say, like, oh, wow, with the micro businesses, like we're going to do a Shark Tank, and they're so excited about it. And they're like, well, we want this person to attend because they don't want to miss out on that. And it's a great job opportunity. So I really, it's not so much a question. Well, it is a question. When you submitted your STEP, did you include things that you were currently working on? And how did that go?
So I don't know. I'd almost have to read yours, but I think because we had the same exact thing happen. We had folks, parents, individuals who were like, no, I want to go to Music with Ralph on Tuesdays. I dance. And so your job's going to have to wait. Like we had the exact same conversation. And so that's how the Voc Development Department got created. So we created an entire program that they used to call blended. And so we just changed the name to Voc Development and then really made it a solid curriculum. So it is a combination of GSE services and DSO services for one individual. So an individual may have Monday, Wednesday, Friday is DSO and Tuesday, Wednesday is GSE. So that then allows them to participate in those fun activities while still working, looking for a job, internship, volunteering. Like it was just we just kind of put it all together.
Okay. And then what was your success with, re-engaging maybe some job sites that, because I know we had quite a bit that I'm trying to re-engage with, even having someone intern there, have you guys been successful with that?
So we had the same exact struggle. We had, I think when I started, like 12 contracted job sites. We're down to 3 because they weren't solvent. We were spending a lot of money to pay individuals to work that the site should have been paying the individuals to work. And so that we had to flip completely. We recently, though, which was really cool, we had a site that we stopped working at. They said, no, we just can't afford it. It's not going to work. And they reached out Friday, actually, and said, hold on, we'd like to talk about this a little bit more. We heard about tax incentives. And we're like, yeah, let's go. Like, so I mean, that's kind of what we were saying before. Like, it's those relationships and kind of keeping them going because you're never really sure what door is going to reopen.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of cool for us. Like, oh my God, call them right now. Like, figure out how we can get back in there, even if it's just an internship, because our guys loved going there. And so how do we keep that? That's kind of what we're figuring out, is just throwing a bunch of stuff against the wall and seeing which door opens.
Okay, similar, because I think we even went to visit some sites and we noticed that they had like OSHA and first aid kits, and we were like, well, if you don't have people here, we could come and replace your OSHA and first aid kits, so just kind of reestablishing those relationships. I know they've been difficult. And then I also had one last question. So I recently had a meeting with American Job Center and we're looking to partner somehow. Has anyone else partnered with American Job Center? Have you found success with that? Okay.
No, I don't even know them.
Okay. All right. Wanted to know any experiences. Okay.
Anybody else on the call for American Job Center? Worth a try. Thank you, Lonnie.
Yep.
Erin, I see you got your hand up.
Yeah, so you mentioned the blended programming that you're doing. So with that, is that for individuals that are already part of your program, or is that for new referrals? Because I know one thing that we struggle with the LON level and getting people DSO programming, if they're, a LON 1 through 5, we get a lot of resistance on that.
It's both. It's been both individuals. We had individuals in our DSO program that we felt like could benefit from and had the skill set to be in vocational. So we targeted those folks first, as far as having them move from strictly DSO to the DSO/GSE model. And then we also have had new referrals come into that model. We found from our end that DDS has been pretty supportive. If somebody wasn't quite the LON score, as far as having them being, the fact that they were in the blended program, which is a focus in vocational skills and independent skills, they were able to Pratt and get approved. We didn't get too much pushback from DDS on that part, because we do highlight, even though we call it both development and there's a blended of DSH and GSH, even the DSH portions are targeted towards emotional regulation, building relationships, managing your emotions, how to maintain your home. So those are skill sets that if you want to be independently employed, you have to be successful at home. So we kind of combine them together. So even the DSO portion is really concentrated in increased independence.
I mean, they work on how to eat in public. Which fork do you use? Like, so which really is something you would want to have that skill set when you were at work eating with peers. And you would also want that skill set if I was at home or I went to a restaurant with friends, right? So it's beneficial to both GSE and DSO. We really wanted the Voc development to be transferable throughout both service types because there is overlap.
Mm-hmm. Right. Thanks.
Other thoughts, questions, or comments? And don't miss another comment from Lucas in the chat on having a pitch for no-cost internships has been very appealing for many small businesses, but then that transition from unpaid intern to paid employee, that can create some obstacles. So I don't know if others have encountered that as well. It looks like I'm seeing some nods, or if anyone has experiences they can share about ways to help overcome that hurdle. All right. So then we've got a range of agencies on today, some larger agencies, some smaller agencies. Are there specific suggestions folks have in terms of where to start smaller if you don't have sort of staff hours and bandwidth for bigger efforts? You know, what are some of the early pieces you can build in on some of the relationship building? Well, that's all right. Okay. Any other have new thoughts or questions come up for folks as we've been talking? All right. Well, again, many, many thanks to Melissa and Du. Since it's come up a couple of times talking about how Mark Community Resources moved away from 14C a few years ago. Just a reminder for any agencies that are still operating sub-minimum wage arrangements, if part of your plans are to move away from sub-minimum wage arrangements to competitive employment, there are actually specific step incentives to support those efforts. Of course, then your timeline needs to align back in with these step pieces. But we do have some time left. So if people have general step questions or comments, Owen and I are on, and we are happy to support any questions you have there. And thank you, Lucas, for the comment about tax incentives, how that can help bring people along, but some are scared to make that jump to paid employee. Oh, thank you, Michael, in the chat for suggestions of ways, sort of starting points, where you handing out business cards with a follow-up email, letting businesses, individuals know that there's people available that you reach out to related to employment. I'm seeing nods. Yeah, such an important step.
I just have one other thing on kind of backing that up, Michael. What we did with business cards was we put a QR code on the back of them so that it would link them directly to our website. That would then talk more about our employment services. So we found that beneficial.
Rob's showing off his business card with QR code.
Smart.
Oh, and Lucas has one too. I love it. It's show and tell. Well, and speaking of websites, so we're actually certainly not the first TA session we've held. I'm putting the link in the chat now to, this is the ARPA step provider documents on the DDS website. It can be a little hidden in the website redesign, but there's a direct link. You can find, if you scroll up on the page, summaries from recent TA sessions, as well as recordings from most of them, including one that Melissa and Du did on restructuring that does talk more about the blended program they've mentioned today. So there's great resources there. That's also where you'll find step templates and other information. And please feel free to reach out to Owen and I through the email address he just put in the chat. If you've got other questions about STEP, even if you are like, I just need someone to sit down and go through this with me, answer some questions. We've had many of those conversations with folks on the line here today. And, you know, STEP's not the right fit for every agency, you know, but if it aligns with some of the things you've been thinking about, it can be a great way to help move pieces along and receive additional incentives during the process. Okay. If there aren't any other questions, I will pass it to Owen for a closing poll.
Yeah, thanks, Betsy. Just before you all jump off, wanted to get a sense of, after this conversation, how people are feeling about submitting a step plan. And this way we can also kind of have a list of folks that we can reach out to offer support and anything you all need throughout the process after you've submitted. Betsy and I are around, so we'd love to get your input on how far along you are with step planning and if you're looking to submit.
And it's not an accident that today's topic is useful to folks, whether or not they're participating in STEP. So hopefully you found the content valuable. I know we did. And we look forward to hearing more from you all through the process. Thank you again to Melissa and Du for leading our conversation today. All right, well, that ends our discussion. Please feel free to drop and we will maybe see you in the next one. Goodbye, all.